Oftentimes, when people personally like or hate someone, it doesn't really have too much of a substantive effect. I mean, obviously, this is in many cases, but not in all cases. It really depends. Everything depends on the circumstance, as that's the point I've been making in all my videos. But the point is, I know I say the point is all the time, that's going to be a meme now. But the point is that when people hate someone, they might still just end up doing favors for the person anyway. And when people really love someone, they might end up being very different from them and not doing favors for them anyway. Now, the prime example, Barack Obama hated Benjamin Netanyahu. And yet, under Barack Obama, the United States was still very subservient to Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. The United States still gave Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel everything they wanted in terms of settlements and their horrendous policies and their discriminatory, basically culturally genocidal policies towards the Palestinians. The United States aided and abetted in all of that, even though Barack Obama hated Benjamin Netanyahu. So there were no substantive policy deviations because Obama hated Netanyahu. It was just all symbolic, basically. Although there is one exception in that Barack Obama did do the Iran nuclear deal, which Israel hated. And the Iran nuclear deal was actually a good thing. So that's like the only good thing Barack Obama ever did, because he was a disaster in every other aspect. But the point is that even though Obama hated Netanyahu, in terms of policy, that made no difference because the United States still gave everything to Israel. Now, let's go to the opposite instance in which there was love, but nothing happened. Donald John Trump was in love with Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK. And although Trump loved Kim, there was nothing happening on a substantive policy level. What should have, so Donald Trump kept the United States military in South Korea. Donald Trump continued that occupation. Donald Trump did not get rid of the awful, horrendous sanctions on North Korea. Donald Trump did not change the policies towards North Korea. Donald Trump was still very hawkish with Russia and China, which made North Korea nervous, obviously. And Donald Trump listened to John Bolton and allowed John Bolton to sabotage the North Korean negotiations, which are disastrous. So despite Donald Trump's love for Kim Jong-un, it did nothing substantive in terms of policy. So the love didn't bring anything positive, unfortunately. Although there was two instances, so Donald Trump did negotiate and have diplomatic talks with North Korea, which was good. And he did briefly suspend some very provocative military exercises on the Korean Peninsula. So Donald Trump briefly suspended some provocative military exercises. So those two things were good, but apart from that, the love didn't really do anything because he didn't really change the policies. He should have changed the policies to be more dovish and not hawkish, but he stayed with the hawkish policies while talking about his love letters. Understand? Now let's get back to an instance of hate. LBJ hated JFK personally, and it was very intense. However, LBJ and JFK still agreed on the policies, and they still did many of the same policies. They both supported civil rights and voting rights. They both supported universal health care. LBJ did the war on poverty. LBJ did immigration reform through the Immigration and Nationality Act. And on domestic policies, LBJ and JFK were very progressive. And even though they really effing hated each other, they still agreed on the policies, and so they didn't change their policies just because they hated each other. It wasn't like JFK was like, oh my gosh, I really hate LBJ, and he supports universal healthcare, so now I'm gonna not support universal healthcare. No, it wasn't like that. That did not happen. They just still kept the same policies, even though they hated each other. So the hatred did not change their policies, did not change their position and what they did and what happened. Additionally, Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ, really liked Herbert Hoover, Herbert Clark Hoover. Herbert Hoover was a massive deregulatory predator. Deregulation, tax cuts for the rich, in the middle of the effing Great Depression. Herbert Hoover's policies made many World War I veterans homeless. Herbert Hoover was basically the 20th century version of George W. Bush and Donald J. Trump in terms of domestic policy. Herbert Hoover's policies are what exacerbated the Great Depression. Meanwhile, LBJ supports taxing the wealthy, making them pay their fair share, putting regulations on predatory corporations, and doing a war on poverty. Herbert Hoover was pro-rich, LBJ was pro-poor. Policies are drastically different, and yet LBJ really liked Herbert Hoover and they were sort of friends. But Johnson's love for Hoover did not change his policies, did not substantively change anything. Also, LBJ was a big fan of Cactus Jack, better known as John Nance Garner. And John Nance Garner, who used to be vice president a long time ago, he was really a pain in FDR's side. But anyway, John Nance Garner was a right-wing Joe Manchin style, blue dot, conservative Democrat, Democrat in name only, dino, basically a Republican. And John Garner was known for his livid hatred of unions and the working class. And he was massively conservative, as I just said. But LBJ was pro-working class. LBJ was pro-middle class. LBJ was very sympathetic, and he helped out the working class people, whereas John Nance Garner really hated them and tried to have them repressed. But LBJ and his friendship with John Nance Garner did not substantively impact his policies. He was still pro-working class while being friends with someone who was anti-working class. Now, personally, I think he should have just cut off the friendship. But I mean, it didn't substantively affect his policies. So my point is, I know I'm saying my point is again, and it's really a meme at this point. Yeah, meme at this point. But anyway, my point is that that personal feelings don't seem to affect substantive policies in many cases. So that's a very interesting observation that I just made today. But make sure that to focus on these substantive policy issues, which I say all the time, and be sure that personal petty stuff, like whether you really love someone or hate someone, doesn't change your policies, because you shouldn't change for the people you love, and you really shouldn't change for the people you hate. You shouldn't change your ideology based on whatever you're personally feeling.